So starting with this first document, Strategic Plan Project Outline, we'll go ahead and click and go through this entire document so that you can have a better understanding of what the expectations are for your final strategic plan. Now I do give a general overview of how the worksheets that you'll be completing throughout the semester tie into the strategic planning project, but I will go ahead and note here what you are creating as a group is a quasi-strategic plan that is going to be specific to the organization that you've decided to work with. Now this can be a local organization that you can actually go out, talk to somebody, gather some information, which is what I highly recommend, or as a group you can choose to do a virtual organization. Now this is something like doing research online and picking maybe a national or a nationwide organization to work with. If you have any questions regarding how to choose an organization, please let me know. So we'll go on down, and what I want to note here is that your plan is going to start very broad natured if you think about it in graphic terms of this pyramid. So you'll start your plan with your organizational mission, vision, and values statement. Now this also will be the information you obtain on your first worksheet, group worksheet assignment. And then we move into, based on your organizational mission, vision, and values, you will conduct a SWOT analysis for your organization. So we start to get a little bit narrower as we move down. Now based on that SWOT analysis, you are to choose maybe a weakness or a threat that the organization needs to focus its attention on, and how to leverage those strengths of the organization against the weaknesses and the threats and the opportunities. So after you complete your environmental analysis and your SWOT analysis, and based on what you discover here, you'll set goals for the organization that they need to achieve. Now objectives are going to be set on how you will achieve those goals, and here at the very bottom will be your action plans, and that will be how you will go about achieving your objectives. Now we will talk about this throughout the semester, but just understand, if you're trying to think how this all ties in together, we'll start very broad-natured, just like this upside-down pyramid. We'll start very broad-natured and slowly move down to where we are more narrowed with our action plans. Now I give you written details and instructions for each section of the paper, so you can read this as a group, just understanding what should be contained within your content section. So let's look at your final submission, and I have it laid out on what is expected. So you will have a title page that's going to list your organization and your group members. You'll start with your organizational background profile, which is to be 300 words. Here are some questions that you can ask, and maybe some information that you want to think about including in that organizational background profile. You must end this section with your bullet pointed list of your mission, vision, and value statement for the organization. Your next section will be your environmental or your SWOT analysis, and this will be a 300-word minimum for each explanatory and concluding section, and I'll go over that in just a second. We have some details laid out here, and I have a visual representation of this that will explain it a little bit more in detail. But there will be 4 sections total under this SWOT environmental analysis, and that will be a listing or a description of organizational strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. So within each section, you will need to detail why these particular things that you identified, either as a strength, weakness, opportunity, or threat, are considered a strength, weakness, or opportunity or threat. You will need to support your claims in this section with peer-reviewed sources and evidence, and this can include articles that you find online, industry trends, research that you conduct, and you will need to cite each reference that you use appropriately. The last part of this section will include how you can leverage, or how the organization can leverage, their internal strengths with their external opportunities, and how they can work to neutralize the identified threats. Section 4 will concern your goals, objectives, and action plans. Again, this will be 100 words for each explanatory and concluding section. So your group will be required to determine 3 goals for the organization. You will have 2 objectives for each goal, and they will require to be adhere to the SMART criteria, again, which we'll talk about throughout the semester. And each objective needs to have 1 action plan. So you'll have 3 goals overall, 2 associated objectives for each goal, so you will have 6 objectives, and then you will have 1 action plan per objective. Groups will conclude this section just giving an explanation, a short explanation of how each goal that they have determined and identified addresses information that they gathered in section 3, which is the SWOT analysis. So goals need to tie back to addressing issues that we identified in the SWOT analysis and how they will ultimately help the organization achieve their mission statement. And then you will conclude with a reference page. So what I've done next, this is more of the written instructions explanatory section for the paper. What I've also done is given you more of a visual explanation of what is expected. So we can see here page 1 is going to start out with your organization name, your team member names and the date. This is going to be your title page. Page 2, like we just reviewed, is going to be your organizational background profile. So you're going to have relevant information regarding the organization in 400 to 500 words. Your SWOT analysis will appear on page 3. Now you will have to create this 4-box grid and list the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that you identified. And this is where you can make a bulleted list of these different aspects that you identified. And then down in the description section, you should have a heading similar to this one that just says strengths. And under that heading, you will detail why the elements that you identified are considered organizational strengths. Now this again is where you'll need to use peer-reviewed sources and evidence and make sure that you are citing it appropriately. And it will be consistent for the next 3 sections, which are your weakness, opportunities, and threats. Each one needs to be 300 words. Now this section you will conclude with your leveraging opportunities and your threat neutralization. So leveraging opportunities, 250 to 300 words, just detailing how the organization can leverage their identified strengths with their identified opportunities, and threat neutralization, just how organizations can work to neutralize threats that were identified through the SWOT analysis. Now into page 4, and the next section will be your goals, objectives, and action plans. So you can see here we have 3 goals. Each goal has 2 objectives associated with it, and each objective has 1 action plan with all of the elements conforming to the SMART criteria. Now you're free to list your goals and objectives out similar to this, and at the bottom you will need to make that connection between the goals and objectives, how they relate back to the SWOT analysis, and how they overall are going to help the organization achieve that mission statement. So I've put a couple bulleted lists of things to look for in this section. An explanation, like I said, of how the goal addresses what you determined in the SWOT analysis, how you're going to help the organization achieve their mission statement, and clearly articulating how objectives are going to relate to goals and how action plans are going to relate to objectives. And your final page will be your reference page, so any references you use throughout this planning project, make sure to cite them not only in text but in APA format here on the reference page. Now there are some technical specifications I would like to go over. So of course each group will have to prepare this report to submit for review. And make sure that they conform to this criteria. So you will have APA style, professionally written, double-spaced, Times New Roman 12-point font, and meets in top form criteria. Now I just want to note here, and I hope this goes without saying, each member of your group needs to be intimately involved with this project. You will be evaluating each other in your group, and you will be submitting those evaluations for me, and I do reserve the right to adjust group members' grade based on the evaluations that come back. You will also, as a group, be completing the team project submission form, which I'll go over in just a second, to give me a little bit of insight into how you worked as a group through your project. Now, there is a presentation component to this, and each group will have to prepare a presentation that lasts about 10 to 15 minutes. Now, this can be a voice-recorded PowerPoint, or you can do a video that you would like to submit, but you are encouraged to use some type of visual aid, and you will need to submit a presentation to go along with your paper that you will be submitting. And every team member is expected to deliver a part of the presentation. Now, these will be some questions that I will be asking myself as I watch your presentations. And make sure that you rehearse it before you deliver it and before you submit your final project to the Dropbox. You want to make sure that it sounds and looks professional. And at the very bottom, I list here just a quick checklist of documents that you'll need to submit for your project. So professionally written paper, team project submission form, team presentation, and then your peer evaluations. So we'll go back to group strategic planning project. Let's look at the next form. This is your team project paper submission form. Now this is where I'll get a better insight in just how the project went for you as a group throughout the semester. This is a very short one-page form, but it will be required to be submitted with your final paper. So as a group, you will be listing the things that you found most difficult with the assignment, but I also want to know, what did you really learn from this project? And then want to know too, overall, about how long would you say that it did take you to complete this project. Not the worksheets that accompany this, but just the project itself. Now you will have to go through and verify that you've completed each one of these tasks, and then adhere your team member signatures to the bottom of this form, and I will accept electronic signatures for this form. Let's again go back to Group Strategic Planning Project and look at our next document. The other thing that you will be submitting will be your peer evaluations, and I will go over the Dropbox in just one moment. But independently, I would like each individual of the group to go through and list your group members by name and rank each group member based on these different elements. So commitment to excellence for the team, their originality, their dependability, and their overall contribution. And I have some definitions down here of what I mean by each of these different terms. And again, you will need to submit this to the Dropbox, and I will go over that in just one second concerning the Dropbox. Now the last document that I have will be the rubric that I'm going to use to grade your final presentation. So there's nothing you need to turn in here, but I'm giving you this document so that you can see, what is target, what is acceptable, and what is unacceptable, and the criteria that I'm going to be looking for as I sit down to review through your plans and watch your presentation. So make sure to review over this document. Again, this is exactly how I'm going to be going through and grading your final project and presentation. Now let's go over to your Dropbox, and that's under Evaluation, Dropbox. If you scroll to the bottom, you'll have a section that says Strategic Plan. Here you will be submitting your group project topic, and that is noted on the course syllabus for the semester. Your next submission will be your strategic plan. So your written narrative paper will be submitted to this Dropbox, and your presentation will be submitted to the strategic presentation Dropbox. Now, I did mention you will have to complete peer evaluations, and those are to be done on an individual basis. So to make sure that everything is confidential, you will submit those individually to the peer evaluation Dropbox by the deadline. And I will be the only one to see those, and I will go through and review those, so you can rest assured that there will be some level of confidentiality with those peer evaluations. If we go back to content, one last time, look at group strategic planning project. Just a quick overview, you have your outline, which will detail exactly how to create and put your plan together, your team project submission form, your peer evaluation, and the rubric that will show you how I'm going to sit down and be grading the projects as they come in. Now, again, the two forms that you will need to turn in addition with your project paper and your presentation, will be this paper submission form and this peer evaluation form.